Oh. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I
Yep.
can hear
All
you.
right. All
Yes.
right, great. Yeah, these AirPods, they were frightening me for a second. All right, so I'll see Chandler's with us. So for some reason I wasn't able to it's making me re-log in to diligence, so I wasn't able to pull the agenda. But I would ask, I don't know who has privileges to share screen, but maybe you could just pull the screen up so I can see the agenda would be helpful. But I'll start with, I guess we will officially call our meeting to order at 2:01 p.m. And then Chandler, I'll turn it over to you to assist us with a roll call.
Yep. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can
All
now.
right. Perfect. All right. I'll begin the roll call. Chair Rogers,
Present.
Vice Chair Turner Whiteley,
Present.
Secretary Foyt, Treasurer Dukowski,
Present.
Trustee Jones, Trustee Sanchez,
Here.
Trustee Williams Jr.,
Here.
Trustee Fiedler, Tr- Trustee Profit.
Present.
All right, Chair, a quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. I guess we will go ahead and move forward. Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll sort of get us started and get some help here. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of
of
the
the United
United
States of
States
America
of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for
for which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for
justice
all.
for all.
All right. Okay, so do we have anyone signed up for public comment, Chandler?
No, Chair, we do not have anyone signed up for public comment.
Okay, then we will move to board action to accept the proposed agenda. Do
This
we
is
have a
Elaine
motion?
Sanchez. I propose to accept the proposed agenda.
Thank you, Trustee
Second.
Sanchez. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Was that Trustee Whiteley?
I think it was me and Trustee Dukowski at the same
Yeah.
time. So
Either
Okay.
one.
All right, we'll credit Trustee Dukowski.
sounds good.
And she's rocking her library hat. So she's got
She gets the tie break.
Yeah.
yes. And so we will go to new business and we will look at our agenda item where we will be discussing and possible board action for review, consideration, and approval the employment contract for the executive director for the library. And so I know that
Chair
we
Rogers.
share.
Sorry. I don't think we voted on that.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you, Trustee Williams. Uh, do we any comment before we vote?
Well, aren't we going to have a discussion on?
Well, no, we're talking about the agenda, just the
Yeah,
agenda.
we didn't
Oh,
vote
I
on the
see.
agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, to approve the agenda. So
Yes.
thank you, Trustee Williams, for that, slowing me down. So all those in favor say aye for the
Aye.
motion on the
Aye.
floor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So we have an approved agenda. Now we will get back to agenda item number 4, new business, under 4A. And this is where we'll be reviewing the possible action for the executive director contract. We did send out several documents sort of consolidated to one. And I want to make sure that everyone was able to receive and open or have access to those before we get started. And I'm
Yes.
counting my Mississippi's. I'm still remembering my COVID
Yes.
my COVID practice, counting the Mississippi's to make sure give everybody a little bit of time to confirm that. So I'm not hearing anyone say they don't have access to the documents other than myself, but I have the digital version. And so I wanted to start with the first document, which is just an overview of the scope of work that we commissioned Gallagher to do. You may recall that they did do a study for similar to this a few years ago. And that is, we went back to them and we did previously share the full scope document out, I believe, at Trustee Sanchez's request maybe a month or so ago, but I can certainly go through that in more detail. But the skinny of it is that we compiled a list of 15 organizations, both a library and nonprofit and sort of in the Southern Nevada ecosystem that we thought were comparable, similarly what we did before, to give us more insights in terms of like what's happening in the market in terms of compensation, to give us that additional detail from which to have further discussion. So that was
Chair
the first
Rogers,
yes.
if I could just get on the record before we go much further, that Director Watson is specifically waiving his right to a closed session for this conversation for this item only.
Did we need to do anything other than that, Councilman Welch?
No,
Other than
we just need his acknowledgement that he has a right to have this as a closed session, and he's waiving it to have it as in an open meeting format.
well, I guess Director
I
Watson, we're waiting for your acknowledgement of that.
I
Or
agree to
consent.
have it. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so we had that as sort of the first key information to inform us of how we would approach this. As I mentioned at a previous board meeting, sort of the highlights of the steps that we were taking is that we would take that information and then we had the consultants do a presentation to myself and Jeff Cervico. And I can't remember if Secretary Watson was in that or not. It's sort of a little foggy there. But we said we would have them do the presentation and then we would share that presentation with the board at a later time, which is now. And then we would also, as the next step, the executive committee that was comprised of myself, Vice Chair Whiteley, our treasurer and our secretary, which is Trustee Dukowski and Foyt. And we talked about, recommendations in terms of how we felt we could move forward with approaching a contract and the performance indicators that are reflected in the current agreement. And we also consulted with Executive Director Watson through that process to see if we were aligned in terms of how we wanted to memorialize those agreements, or at least soft draft agreements in the form of a contract. And then we would present that back to the board. And we did have our other attorney who helps us with contracts, Mr. Abbott, draw up all the contract details. So we are very certain that it is in alignment in terms of, the employee contract laws and all the things related to that. And so I wanted to just see if there were any questions in terms of sort of the process that we have followed to date before we sort of go through the full presentation with the board leading up to this.
This is Trustee Sanchez. I just want to say thank you for going over what the process was prior to the entire board being informed on this. So I think, I'd like to proceed and move forward if we could on the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Sanchez.
And this
So with
is
that said, I'll
Trustee
go
Boyd.
to the next document, which is sort of the summary of the presentation that we received by Gallagher. And I'll just go over the highlights of that. And then Chandler, if you could advance the.
Chair Rogers, I think there was
Yes, Trustee
someone
Fielder.
who has called in who was about to say something.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm Trustee Foyt, and I've dialed in, so I'm here to participate as much as possible. Thank you.
All right, we'll give you credit on roll call. Thank you, Trustee Ford, for dialing in, and Trustee Fielder, thank you for the assist. I'm on my laptop, so I have limited real estate to jump around. So Chandler, if you could advance to the slides that show the summary from Gallagher.
Just sure, give me 1 second. We'll pull that up.
And while Chandler's doing that, I'll go ahead and advance the conversation. We did request responses from about 15 organizations, from which we had eight responses. And so from those responses, we went to look at what the median salary was for those eight respondents. That would also be inclusive of where our executive director lies in that. And I would probably suggest because I don't see this, want to make sure we see the same thing. So Chandler, are you still trying to locate
Yes, Chair. Having
and
some
I apologize for, I wasn't able to log into Diligent to.
I have a question. Are we going to have someone present the findings? I know that you and the board, the executive committee, were able to get the findings. Do we have someone who's going to go through that for us as
Well,
the
that's what
entire
we're
board?
Well, that's what I'm going to go through that with you now, along with Jeff will assist.
Okay. May I ask why we didn't have the company that did the survey here?
It was my decision to not invite them because it's pretty straightforward in terms of going over their presentation. Chandler, how are we
my
faring?
apologies for the delay. We have TPS pulling it up now.
Okay. All right. Let's go to, can we keep going, scrolling?
I think page 20 might be the page we are interested in.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we can go up one more page. Yes, okay, so the first part of the presentation they provide us with just sort of letting us look at what the median and averages look like for Kelvin salary and total compensation that would include fringe benefits to see where he ranks with the respondents. Remember, we requested 15, we only received 8, and of the 7 who didn't respond, it would have been Clark County of Nevada. Locally, it would have been Southern Nevada Housing Authority, UNRV. We were able to pull some UNRV data that was publicly available, the Las Vegas Convention Authority, and then other comparable sized libraries that we looked at was who did not respond would have been Brooklyn, Queens, and Baltimore. And so based on that information, these were the ones who did responded that you see here, along with Kelvin. You can see, the first column just talks about the minimum monthly salary, then the maximum monthly salary. And then we talk about salary effective date. We look at next salary increase dates. And then we move over to percentage of next increase. And then we look at employer contributions. Then we sort of get into what the compensations are in terms of total salary. But the key takeaways here would be where Kelvin currently is when we look at median and average. For the respondents, he's one, two. So he's number 7 there. And then when you look at the table below where you see a base salary median, you see base salary average, then you see the percentage above or below the median. So negative 9%. And then when you look at percentage above, below the average, we're still hovering around negative 9%. And then when you sort of translate that over to the next table to the right of that, where you see total compensation median, total compensation average, percentage above, below median, that we're still hovering when we add the fringes to the salary, we're even more away from the median and the average. And I'll just remind the board that when we did the presentation, one of the things that the presenters mentioned is that usually what they recommend is looking at the median. And so that's the number that they asked us to focus on, the median percentages versus the average percentages. And then that will also be aligned with our past practice when they did this 3 or 4 years ago, when we made decisions in terms of, addressing the executive director's salary along with his direct reports. And so this table is not adjusted, but you will see that, right now, Kelvin's at 22,000. And then you can see then the next one up is 23, and then 24, 24, then 25,000, 27, 32, and so forth. So he's about 9% below the median average. And then we translate that to compensation, we're about 13% below the median total compensation.
This is Trustee Sanchez. I have a couple of questions, maybe for Jeff Serpico.
Go ahead, Trustee Sanchez.
So looking at the median and looking at where there is a gap, can someone tell me what are the typical fringe benefits that the competition has versus what we offer as a district? Could someone cover that for me, please?
I think in terms of additional benefits, that's maybe for a little bit later on when we looked at benefits. I think what you'll see, some of the benefits where other organizations might have that we did not, maybe things like a matching or an additional percentage component on their deferred compensation. Many of the state plans have a max salary cap. I think PERS is like 258. And some may offer additional amounts above and beyond that. A percentage may be paid into their 457 plan. Additional perks. I'm really pretty standard with what we would see. Sign-on bonuses, those types of things. Is that the question you're looking for? Or?
So I'm just trying to gauge. When I look at the market compensation data, what I'm trying to find out is, in looking at what we provide as the library district versus other districts, I hear what the board chair is saying is that we have a 9%.
We don't actually. If we could move to the adjusted
so
slide
this is
for labor
unadjusted
cost. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well,
So this is
what page is that on?
The next
Just go
page.
to the next page.
Okay.
And this
Thank you.
actually adjusts for the cost of labor, which is how it's typically done because it takes into consideration skill shortages and supply and demand issues in different labor markets. So if you look at this slide, it moves up a little bit, and we look pretty close to the median, and then these numbers are so small I can barely see
They
them.
are.
So, but then you see that when you adjust for the cost of labor in the different regions, it moves up a little bit, but we're still not leading the up market by any sense of the word. And also, I would just want to point out on the previous slide, if you see where the min and max monthly salary is the same, it's because
Yes.
with executives, not all organizations will set a pay range. They may just use a rate they contract initially and then advance from there. So that's where you would say that. And then some actually do use a pay range.
So, Mr. Serpico, could you explain to me the difference between the 9%, where it says at percentage above or below median, it's the negative 9%, and then versus the 13? Where does that other numbers come from? Where does that other negativity in the percentage come from?
That's when you look at our total numbers, either on the salary or on the total compensation compared to the market median, where we fall. So in
And if I could add,
yeah, go ahead, Dr. Rogers.
yeah, I was going to say, Trustee Sanchez, where we say the negative 9%, that's salary only. And then when you look at total compensation, that brings the benefits into the equation.
So I guess that's my question. What is it that we're not offering? When you look at salaries versus total compensation, what is it that we're not offering, or how are we not competitive? I guess that's my question.
There may be a couple benefits, like I had mentioned, potential percentage contributions on a 457. Some of it might be differences in perks like auto allowances, but some of it has to do, and I think a great portion was the amount contributed towards health insurance. And Dr. Rogers, I think Mike, the consultant, had pointed that out.
Yes.
So that's where you start to see the differences in percentages. And I might also point out, focus on the median and not the average, because we all know from our classes that median's more statistically stable. So, but I believe one of the bigger areas we saw with us was the health insurance contribution made an impact. And also they had brought up one of the areas would be potential additional contributions to a 457 because those salary caps, and it's not just in Nevada and other states, will stop. Your maximum benefit, I think, is around 258 in Nevada. So those were a couple of the areas. It's not that we're necessarily not offering, many things. Sometimes our contribution may be lower.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that
So
was,
that's what I'm trying to understand. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
That's why it's helpful to have people that, to go through this. I know that you, the executive board went through, but it's nice to have somebody actually go through all of this for us in detail instead of us just trying to read it and figure it out for ourselves so we can make the best decisions possible. I've not been in a situation like this. Usually, we all get briefed. And if it's a second time because the executive board has already been involved, that's great, but it's helpful.
Can I ask a question really quick, just to piggyback on Trustee Sanchez?
yes, Trustee Wiley.
When I look at this graph, this chart, it sure looks like all of the additional compensation that's taken into the total compensation model is all listed right out there. Employer contribution to Social Security, deferred comp plan, contribution to medical or cafeteria, contribution to dental, contribution to division. It looks like it's all laid out. There's nothing else in that total comp number like deferred pay or anything else that I'm seeing. Correct? These are pretty cut and dry.
That is in there, but they collected any additional benefits too when it came to retirement. But
yeah,
okay, because the quick math that I'm doing in my head, which is probably not accurate. Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm asking. Is that looks like that monthly compensation total is just an addition of all the numbers that are there, and that's the average.
Yeah, the fringe. So just to clarify, so this is the fringe when we have total compensation, and then what Jeff was indicating, some of the strategies that they propose to address that deficiency could be like contributions to a 457 plan and otherwise. So that's what they were
Copy
saying,
that.
because typically what happens is it's very difficult to say we're gonna change the benefits package for one employee without it
Hmm.
impacting the entire organization. So they
Right.
said typically what they do to counter that is look at other incentives as part of the contract.
For sure. But this percentage above or below median and average is reflective of the numbers that are in the chart, full stop, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Perfect.
And health contribution, I think, and again, Dr. Rogers was, I think they said the biggest variance.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the biggest difference in where you move the needle is having a
Yeah,
more competitive package, but it's not always feasible because you have to take the entire organization into mind because typically they have the same sort of health plans available to them. And so they offered a number of counter strategies to that
perfect.
we'll also go over.
I just wanted to make sure we were all dealing with the same set of data with this, and it looks like we are. It's all right here in
Yes.
the graph chart.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
This
And
is
then
Trustee Foy, too. I would like to interject that I'm very pleased that the majority of what was given to us for comparative data is from local agencies, local government entities and such that are living with our cost of living and whatever expenses. I mean, it's actually a clearer pool than comparisons from districts out of state. I think we're very fortunate in we may have only gotten 8 responses, but they're worthy to be looked at and compared, and it's the type of a comparison that is appropriate in this position.
And I want to say it's worth noting that sort of the slide that we're locked in on, that -9% and then the corresponding -13%, that's before we discount it to Las Vegas local dollars. So that's why we want to transition to slide 21, because that one is sort of more apples to apples in terms of the cost of labor. And so when you look at this one, you can look at it the same way, but when you look at the percentage above below the median, we're sort of less than 1% there when we talking salary. And then when we look at percentage above below the median in terms of like overall compensation, we move down from like that 13% under 3%. So right at 2.9. So we're much more competitive within the local market when you look at what we pay and contribute to fringes when you discount all the other markets to the Las Vegas market. So we're in a much more competitive space there. And so what I will add is some of the suggestions. Can we go down to I want to see were there any questions in terms of interpreting page 21. It's the
I just
same
have a
slide, but it just
question.
discounts things back to discounts everything to Las Vegas dollars.
I think I understand now. Yeah, if you'd like to move forward, and if I have other questions, I'll ask as we get further along.
Okay. And then we go to the next page. And then here's where we get into just responses to retirement. And here you'll see, a lot of it was not applicable, or there wasn't data available in terms of getting into the weeds of the different retirement plans for Las Vegas, Clark County, Cincinnati, and the rest of the respondents.
Well, it looks to me here that we are on par with a lot of other library districts in the sense that they do not give supplemental retirement plan participations.
Mhm.
And they do
Yes.
not give supplement. So they're it seems like they're all the same with the exception of maybe one.
For
Yeah.
the supplemental, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I mean, in that regard, it's good, right? We don't see other library districts providing additional supplemental retirement plan or buy-up options.
Right. There's
For
no
those,
formal plan in place. Yes.
Yeah, so that it would be apples to apples, and other library districts are doing the same thing that we're doing, is what I'm saying in that sense.
for the respondents, yes.
Yes, but that's all we have to go on, correct?
Yes, along with recommendations from the consultant. So we can go to the next slide now. And that's just a continuation of the retirement responses.
So I saw from that there were like only 2 library districts that allowed like a supplemental buy-up option.
Yes. And then we get to a paid management leave. This was another indicator that they looked at, and you can see there were, and I'm not counting the ones, but you can see the ones that did offer that versus did not offer that, and the amount of leave, and then the amount of executive leave. So there were some differences in the leave types that were available. You can see Cuyahoga County, they did 24 hours annually personal. And then you can see where like San Francisco, they also provided executive management leave and executive leave. So I mean, in Seattle and San Francisco offered executive leave, whereas other ones just had none or limited. We go to the next slide. And then employer paid insurance. I'll ask Jeff to give me an assist on sort of just a quick overview of this representation.
The graph is pretty straightforward. It talks about the amount of life insurance, short-term disability, and long-term offered by each of the different organizations. We usually are competitive in terms of life insurance. We offer 2 times the annual salary, but that caps out at 200,000. And if you go through the rest, you'll see this is what's standardly offered at these institutions. If there was something they offered in addition, as part of an individual contract, it may not have shown up in this, but you can go through and it just talks about the amount of insurance offered, and then whether short-term disability or long-term disability is provided. And that would typically mean employer paid. When they say 200 weekly, that's typically employer paid.
I have a question. Can you go back to our life insurance pay to that slide, please? So when you look at, the 2 times annual salary, no one really gets that. And if we're talking about just our executive, he gets a maximum of 200,000. I mean, I would say that's not a lot.
Well, remember, this benefit is what it's the organization's benefit. So 2 times annual salary for great percentage of the staff is not 200,000. So they get the max benefit. But at an executive level, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I just feel like this is something that I would look at, because if you're hiring somebody and they're making over $200,000 and they have a family and they have, obligations, if you really think about it, that would put someone under the water.
Well,
I
but
mean,
yeah, we can buy up here. We didn't
yeah.
include that.
Oh, you did. Oh, you
Yeah,
can. Okay.
you can buy up
Okay.
here out of
Because it
your own
says
pocket.
maximum, so
That's
I'm
the
assuming
maximum the
that
organization pays, but you
It's
can buy
contributing.
up. Yeah, and obviously after you pass a certain amount, there's evidence of insurability and everything else. So
Sure. But
yeah.
I just think at an executive level, that is something that I would like to look at if possible, as a group, because I think in the future, I mean, when somebody applies for a position, they are looking at the overall package. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. And then we can go back up now to the table that shows a visual representation of all the considerations that we are recommended to be included in the agreement. And then I'll talk about, just in talking with the consultants, they sort of talk through a menu of suggestions. Certainly, Elaine, what you described, one of those was, hey, you all could look at offering a more competitive overall fringe benefits package that could include a number of additions. But they also caution that, it could be a huge expense to adjust the entire benefits of an organization, or it could also create some inequities if you offer one type of insurance versus or one package versus another one. And so they sort of suggested not going that direction. And they also talked about, looking at our previous recommendation when they did the market compensation analysis that we adopted was sort of doing the median plus 10%. They also talked about our severance package, which was at 3 months, and that the market that they see for executive is more 6 to 12 months. So that was an area that we could look at. They also talked about PERS contribution being a consideration for especially retention. If the ED is able to complete the 5-year contract, that could be a good incentive for the person to stay, especially if they are, a high performer, they're being recruited in the market, or there are other opportunities open up in the market. That could be a good incentive to lock them in to complete their contract. They also talked about the deferred comp that Jeff was mentioning, that in lieu of, changing the entire organization's benefit package, that we could look to doing like a deferred comp contribution annually, and then limiting that to a percentage range. And I believe that they indicated that the ranges can be, somewhere like usually like up to 10% as a number, or a flat rate. And then they also talked about, another option could be signing bonus. And then they also talked about offering executive insurance above the regular insurance that's available to employees. And so those were sort of the menu of things that they said we could consider as we look to make adjustments to his package. And then the last thing we talked about with them is that, he currently has a car allowance, and they were saying that could be another opportunity to be more competitive in lieu of dealing with the cost of adjusting the overall fringe. So those were the things that they put out there. And what we created was this table so that you could see sort of the items that we ultimately settled on in back and forth with Kelvin, in terms of the things that were sort of more important to him among the things that we could do. And then also talking through what the range would be acceptable within those particular categories. So when you see the current base salary at 271,000, we took the same recommendation and what we had done for past practice to just do a median plus 10% to move him to 298,360. And you can see what the estimated cost increase of that is in year one. It would be a one time on the contract effective date. And then just to note is we felt that would make him more competitive in the market. And while that is a 10% increase, it would move him from, when you look at the table of the respondents, those 7, it would move him from being, in at the 5th position up 1 position to the fourth rank there. And then we also looked at deferred compensation contributions toward a 457 plan. Right now, it's a 0 there. And we felt that, instead of going up to like 10% in that space, that we felt we would look at maybe middle of the road and stay at 5%. And then that would be a cost of about $14,918 in year one. It would be annually. It would be implemented July 1, and it would be based on the previous fiscal year's salary rate. We also looked at severance package, which one of the things that they mentioned is that we were really not competitive there at 3 months, and they were very surprised that we were at 3 months and not somewhere around 6 to 12. And when we analyzed the 6 to 12 number, we decided that, Kelvin is a very high performer, and that, we don't feel that we're at risk of his performance based on his last tenure with us, that, there would be something to occur to where we would have to do a termination for cause, and that it would be a low probability that we would end up exercising that option. And so we decided to go with a 12-month number there. And then when we look at the 1 year PERS contribution, right now we do 0. And we felt that, in consultation with the consultants and talking with Kelvin, that this could be a good incentive for Kelvin to remain with us his entire contract. And then we would make a one-time contribution of 91,000 to buy him 1 year of PERS. And we recognize that Kelvin is in the peak of his career, and ideally we do want to retain him for a number of reasons. And that was one of the things that, the consultants and we agreed with during an executive conversation, and then talking with Kelvin, that that's something that we would want to include. We also looked at signing bonus of $10,000 as a one-time contract at the beginning of signing of his contract. And while we look at that as a one-time versus annually, and when we look at what that signing bonus is, that would, if we looked at it just a one-time, it would still not put him over where he is in the top 4 in the numbers. Even if we were to make that annualize it over 1 year period, he would still be below number 3. So we felt that that was reasonable. And then lastly, with the car allowance, we looked to increase that from 500 to 1,000. We all recognize that, Kelvin is, out and about more than, anyone had ever imagined. And we felt that, that would be something that would, be appropriate to compensate him for the amount of time that he is out in the community and putting wear and tear mileage, all the things on the car. And then lastly, we just wanted to just reiterate that, with all of these things with his contract, that Kelvin still would be eligible for, whatever merit COLA that as any other employee during the evaluation process. And so I wanted to, now that will sort of conclude the rationale of, the executive committee and our conversations with Kelvin, taking into consideration, recommendations, suggestions among the menu that was provided to us during our presentation with the consultants.
I have a question for Jeff Serpico.
Yes.
Jeff, let me ask you, do you have a spreadsheet on what this is going to cost us for during the life of the actual contract, of how much this is going to cost us as a board? Do we have that?
We do not. We could prepare that if we need to, but year out over year, the 5-year cost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that is very, very important. Yeah.
Chairman Rogers, this is Trustee Prophet. I have one just quick question. If I understand correctly, given that the signing bonus is only $10,000, and even with that being stated, we're still not moving the executive director into a more competitive state. He's still teetering behind as it relates to compensation. So my question would be, can there be consideration if we can't push him up any further to maybe use the elements within a signing bonus, maybe look to increase that? Because we have the #1 librarian in all of America.
You sure do.
Right here. And we're still pushing his compensation beneath 3 other individuals, 4 other individuals. I think if it's possible, can we consider doing more?
Uh, Chair Rogers, I also have another question too. I mean, I just heard the question, but going back to uh, Board Member Santos' question about the overall compensation. Several of these things that you mentioned are one time beyond the 10,000 and also the PERS. Those are just one-time costs. Those aren't costs over the course of the 5 years. And then there is just the regular amount that we would be paying yearly. So
That's correct. Yeah.
okay, that's what I want to make sure, because I just want to make sure everybody knows that all the other things that, the one-time things are just one time. It's not every 5 years.
Right.
But it's
Yes.
also expensive and it also is going to cost us on the long term. If you're going to pay for somebody's 1 year worth of PERS and then they're going to get a COLA, and if I'm not mistaken, eligible for merit and COLA equivalent to staff eligibility, adjust pay raise maximum 30%. It will all add to our overall budget.
That's it. That's our
For the, like-
current procedures. That's
Yeah, that's
That's
current for
maintaining
all
what we do.
employees.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. And
Right.
and I understand that. But what I'm saying is it would be nice to have, I mean, if we're going to talk about what we're going to do for the next 5 years, it would behoove us as a board to know what those prices are going to be and how much it's going to cost us. Because at the end of the day, we only have one employee. We do not have to we rely on Kelvin and his direction for the other employees, but this is the one thing that we do need to know as far as costs and all costs as it runs down into the future and how that will affect the library district.
But if
Is
we're
it
going to
even-
talk about, excuse me, I do want to say something. I want to say something if we're talking about comparative costs. If God forbid, that we end up losing Kelvin because of compensation and the fact that he is very much at the top of this game nationally and perhaps even internationally. We have an individual that if we had to replace, we would have to start another one of our expensive searches. Then we would have the adjustment period. And would we ever really replace him at someone of the same caliber? I don't think so. So I think whatever we can do to keep him on board, this is the time to make that decision and to stand firm and give him an appropriate package that will maintain his residency and employment with us.
I would like to do that too, but I'd like to look at the numbers because to me that's also important. I mean, I understand exactly where you're coming from, Trustee Foyt. I don't disagree with what your arguments are, but what I am saying is, gee, we are the board. It would be nice if we had a financial document that shows us, hey, this is what potentially it could cost us down the road. We're just talking about today's figures.
Respectfully, because I think this is a good track to go down. I don't know that we're even able to project what merit and COLA in years beyond this year could be. I don't think those are, forgive me if I'm wrong, Mr. Serpico, please tell me,
right.
because I feel like I don't
right.
know how can we determine
They're-
what the organization's COLA and merit ranges are going to be in the future. Every other cost looks like it's here if it's going to continue, which looks to me like the car allowance and the salary.
we go into contract negotiations next year in 27, which will impact the merit and COLA. And that's with our 3 collective bargaining agreements. We've indexed our COLAs to the Western CPI, minimum 2, capped at 4. And then merit is variable. We'll be bargaining for that.
So
There'd
yes,
have to
there
be
are
there'd
ranges.
have
There
to
are
be-
ranges that we could have, is what I'm saying.
There would have to be
because
some
because everyone
assumptions
does
made.
this. Everyone
Yeah.
does this. Every organization has that.
And I'm just on mute to allow interaction. So if there are any other comments.
Chair Rogers. In
Yes, Trustee Fiedler.
To respond to Profit's concern, I know that at a previous meeting, we had discussed a component of Kelvin's salary, and I don't remember if all of that is part of public record. Can you refresh our memories of what we're able to say about that? It was like 3 or 4 months ago.
What was it regarding specifically?
I don't remember if it was like a merit? Was it
Well,
a COLA?
I believe we were talking about whether or not, how do we determine a performance bonus amount? That
There we
may
go.
have been what we were talking about. And
Okay.
we discussed, prior to the next evaluation for Director Watson, that we would spend some time talking through some sort of model in which we determine what that might look like.
Okay. So does that mean, so for 2025, was there a merit bonus? Was that a decision that was made or no?
There was a merit bonus. I don't know the exact number, but I believe it was
3%.
It was a percentage of his
Yeah.
gross income.
It was 3% merit and 3% COLA, I believe, this past year.
So
Okay.
6% total to his base salary, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. That was all done in a board meeting. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question. I was just wondering who brought up the idea of purchasing 1 year of PERS? Whose
those
idea was that?
were those were suggestions offered by the consultants in terms of alternatives to make him more competitive. When we looked at that total compensation and we talked about it can be incredibly expensive as an organization to adjust the fringe package for everyone. And so one alternative to do that would be to contribute to do, you say in the 554 plan, that's what we're talking about, or the PER, I'm sorry, the PERS one is more
PERS.
around, yeah, PERS is more around an incentive to retain him that we would pay at the end of him completing this 5-year contract that we're negotiating currently.
So then he would have at the end is when it would be paid.
It
Not
will
at the
be paid
beginning.
if he fully completes this 5-year contract that we're discussing at this moment.
Yeah. It indicates on the contract termination.
So if he does not complete his contract, if he takes a position elsewhere, then that would not be an expense incurred by the district. If we were to terminate him for cause, that would not be an expense incurred by the district. That would only be an expense if he completed his 5-year contract. And so this is a way of an incentive to retain Director Watson.
Well, I will say I think he has done a good job. I also wish that as a board we would have just line itemed what this package, what it costs us now and what it would cost us in the future, because we do have this number and I just feel like this is just something that we fell short on that we should have. Because it's our responsibility as a board to know that. But I do think he's done a great deal of work. I think he has worked very hard. I will say that, car allowances, if you look at a lot of companies, those have kind of gone by the wayside. They're not done. They're just because it's just not something that is as valuable as perhaps maybe the severance package, as perhaps maybe the deferred compensation contribution, as perhaps raising the base salary or a signing bonus. So I just feel like I understand that we have an executive committee, but I just feel like there's something that we could maybe review again. There's things that I really like about this, but there's some things where I just think, yeah, I'm not so sure. And I think it's because I don't have the numbers. I don't have the information in front of me. It's not, it has nothing to do with Kelvin.
I think if there are
And
things
I would
people are uncomfortable with or would choose differently, I think that they should bring them up and we should consider them.
say that one
Mr.
more time,
Trustee
Trustee
Prophet.
Whiteley.
I just think if people have different ideas or they would like to address or adjust what's been proposed, then I would like them to bring them up and we can talk about them and consider them.
And I would just, want to remind the board to be mindful that, with each of these items, they're sort of a lever, right? We could, instead of doing net 10%, it could be net 15%. It could be net 5%. It could be net 8%. The same thing with the severance package. Instead of it being 12 months, it could have been 9 months. And so there are these sort of continuums that we can adjust within each of the areas. And what you see here is reflective of the executive committee and Kelvin. So this collective package represents agreement and priority for the executive director. So when we start saying let's move 10,000 up to 15,000, I would just say we just want to be mindful when we move one thing, then it adjusts another thing, and we go back into a whole nother negotiations with Kelvin.
Well,
Chair Rogers, Chair
Yes,
Rogers,
Trustee Williams.
this is Harry, and I just want to say, as a board, prior to me getting on this board, and now being on this board has always been fiscally responsible, and I know the executive board has done a lot of work, and I trust the executive board, I trust my members, and I support what you guys have brought forward. I mean, I just think we prolong things as we get ready to switch this number and change this number and move this to that. I mean, it all ends up being pretty much the same number if we're gonna move, say, 12,000 from one thing to put it 12,000 on. Me personally, I respect what you guys have done, and I support the work that you guys have done. And that's just speaking for me personally. I kind of support the proposal that you guys have brought forward.
This is Trustee Foyt. During our discussions with the executive committee and with Kelvin himself directly, there were some different proposals of things that he might have wanted to consider or asked to have it included. And we really did winnow it down to things that he was seeking as well as what we were seeking. There was a lot of time and consideration that went into this, and as Trustee Williams said, we really brought forth something good, something that is appropriate and is balanced, and I appreciate his comments. Thank you.
This is Trustee Jones. I just want to highlight that I know we're discussing what it would cost, and I agree with Harry that the library district has been fiscally sound for quite some time. I think what's key to me is when you measure it against other library districts and realize that we have such a high performer that is not even at the top of the scale. That's something we should definitely consider. It's important to keep key talent and just to see the way the library has grown and expanded in the reputation in the community and all of that. I believe those are reasons that we do what we need to do to make sure that people are supported, that people are trusted. I definitely trust the executive committee, the consulting firm, the attorneys, everyone who's worked on this. They come to us every month with different things, and this is just one more thing. So as we put our trust in them, as we recognize that what we see is not even at the top of the scale, we're not even asking for the top. We're just trying to get midway for someone who is at the top of the scale in performance. I just think we need to keep that in mind as we make this decision.
Thank you, Trustee Jones, and I'll just leave it open to see if there are any other trustees who have any comments or reactions to, what we have been discussing. And the way that I understand the next step would be, we would vote on this as a package. And if the vote does not pass, then we would have further discussion about what adjustments and counters we want to go back to. I want to just consult with Councilman Welch to ensure that I have that correct.
Yes, that is correct, but I do believe that Kelvin's contract runs out shortly. So we'd be
Yes.
running without a contract if this isn't approved today, if something isn't approved today.
Chair
Well,
Rogers?
this is that's bad timing then. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, that is a shame and that should not happen because I do think that Kelvin, has worked hard and he deserves to have a contract beforehand. But I also feel like, sometimes we're not able as a board to have these conversations because we have to do this right away because the contract's going to end. Oh, yeah, sorry, we don't have some of the information or all the information that some of our board members would like. So there's a reason why we have board meetings so we can discuss this. And I certainly don't like having board special meetings. And now, Gerald, it seems like it's something that's going to, the contract is going to be over with soon. It just I don't like the way that that's playing out.
But Trustee Sanchez, I think we're all here. So if there are things that you don't like or things you want to propose, I think everyone is open to hearing what's making you uncomfortable or what you would choose to do differently. And we're all here, we're all in it to work on it together and get a great package to keep a great leader. And I know we're all on that same page. So it sounds like you're unhappy, but I'm not hearing any actionable steps
No,
from you on
I'm
this.
not, I'm saying that I am unhappy with the process of the way this is going because I feel like we as a board should be able to have a discussion and not feel like everything is rushed or we're going to be done with, the contract's going to end soon. So go, go, go. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The other thing I'm going to say is that like I said before, it would be nice if we would have had just a just like Jeff does normally, I'm sure. When they look at employees, they look at the future and they go, okay, this is what it's going to cost us 5 years from now. I don't think any of you guys realize what that will cost us. Now, I'm not saying that Kelvin doesn't deserve it, but I'm saying that as a board, we should have those numbers in front of us. So I am
So
saying
are you
that as a
saying that
I am
this
saying that
doesn't work
as
for
a
you until you get that? I'm just trying to figure out what the solution is.
I'm
Maybe we
saying
can try
that's
to
what
get
we
that for you
usually
so you
get
can
as
feel
a board.
comfortable.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
So
Usually
right
as a
now,
board,
do
yes,
you
I
need
usually get
that?
that.
So
Well,
right
that
now,
I
do you need that
usually
to move forward?
it would be nice. It would
So
be nice. That's all.
I'm
And
really just
again,
trying
this
to
is
move
not
us
about
forward. So is it a
Kelvin. This is
yes
not
or a
about
no?
I'm
Like,
sorry,
do
what
we
was
need
your
a
question?
do we need to have someone pull those numbers together and reconvene or take a
Well,
recess if we can for an hour while somebody does the math to me? Because I want you to be comfortable with this, and I want if people have other opinions or other things, I want them to vocalize them and verbalize them so we can talk about it and we can get it done. I don't think we should. I hear everyone say the contract's coming up. I get that, but I don't really feel like we need to rush. We're all here now. We all have the same goal, so let's just express what we need to feel good about it. And
Jeff, can
I'm
No,
you
just not
run those
hearing what
numbers
that
for
is.
us? Is
this
that
Um,
possible?
this is board member
Trustee Boyd,
Williams.
I'd like to call for the vote.
Yeah, this
The
is board member
majority.
Williams.
I second a call for the vote.
Yeah, and I was
Thank
saying
you.
this is board member Williams, and I was just saying I personally don't feel rushed. I like I said once before, that's why we have an executive board to do these negotiations, and I don't think a whole board needs to be involved in the process of this negotiation. And they brought something and they brought a package forward, and I think at a particular point, if we do need to find or if Trustee Sanchez needs the 5-year number, then I'm sure that they could provide that, sir. But I don't think that is enough to stop us from voting. Me personally.
I did not say that. I did not say that I was trying to stop the vote in order for me to get a 5-year. I'm just saying that in the process, you typically have that as a board. The board knows exactly what it's going to cost all of us for the duration of the contract. That is what I'm saying.
I, for one, feel very comfortable with what this is going to cost us for the duration of the project, given what we can and cannot foresee in the future about COLA and merit and negotiations with our labor unions. I think we've all had conversations with Kelvin about what his priorities are in regards to his work priorities and what is important for him as we renegotiate this contract. As other people have said, a lot of time went into that. A lot of things were taken into consideration. I feel really good about this. If something is gnawing at someone, I just feel like grievances are better aired than swallowed.
I have
And I
called for the
will
vote. Someone
respond by
did second
saying,
it,
you
but
know,
Chair Rogers,
I ran
Chair
a
Rogers.
quick, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me, but Chair Rogers, I called for the vote and there was a second.
We'll need a motion first.
Chairman Rogers, I
Well,
call for motion to pass.
I would make
well,
the
let me
motion.
just
Go
respond
ahead.
quickly if I may.
Sorry. Certainly.
A little chair privilege. So just to respond to Trustee Sanchez's concern, I did quickly do the math, and you know, if we didn't do anything different for Kelvin versus implementing this contract, it would be a change of about $230,000, ballparking it over a 5-year period. So that would be the change in compensation overall over a 5-year period.
Okay. So that's with the
That's with everything.
proposed COLAs. Okay.
That's
Okay.
what
Well,
all
thank
the
you for
things.
doing that. Thank you
It's
for
a
doing that. I would, you know, I mean, that's just standard procedure. So thank you.
Well, and then I will also say that, you know, in the conversations, we also did take into account affordability and reasonableness and all the things. And we do recognize that whether Kelvin is executive director, we have to go out and recruit another executive director. We still going to have to put together a similar compensation package if we want to get someone of similar talent and ability. So it's, to me, whether it's Kelvin in the seat or someone else, we still as a district would incur this type of cost.
Chair, I
Chairman
think you have a
Rogers.
motion on the floor.
So now that I've answered, I want to go ahead and recognize that we did have a statement about calling for the vote, and we did have a first and a second. So I do want to see if we could go back to the original document where I can sort of see the motion, and then we can see if someone wants to make that motion official and sort of read the full motion.
In this case, the way it's written, I think the motion would have to be to accept the recommendation of the executive committee as is outlined on whatever page that is. I can't see.
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
last.
trying to seeing if
Chair,
Chandler or who's.
if I can, I'd like to move that we authorize the board to enter oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I don't see it in here. Do we have the
It's
exact
really to
verbiage?
accept it.
It's
It's
maybe
really to
page 1 or
accept.
2. There we go. Okay.
So I'm moving that the board approve an employment contract for the executive director of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District as presented today.
I'll second.
Yes.
All right. No, we've had discussion, and so we would just go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. All right. So we have an approved contract for the next 5 years. Congratulations, Director Watson.
Thank you, Chair Rogers. Thank you, board. I don't know if I want to. So I'll just say, if I can take a few minutes to say thank you. I look forward to the next 5 years. We've had a tremendous 5 years, not just myself, the district, the community, and I look forward to continuing my service.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then I will certainly add, to some of the points that Trustee Sanchez outlined that, there is not a formal written process for doing the executive director contract. And so certainly, Trustee Sanchez, I appreciate some of your uh, concerns, and I would suggest that maybe we form an ad hoc committee, and maybe that's something that we can create a more formal process with timelines in which to do this work.
Yes, I think that is necessary, and I thank you for that because I think our board will be better, and so will Kelvin. Kelvin's, it will be easier for him as well.
Okay.
I also, sorry, excuse me, Chairman Rogers. I think that that's a really great idea because, especially since our terms are 4 years long and the contracts are 5 years long, this is something that we will do rarely, and some board members may never do in their term, depending on how, the years lie. So I think that having guidelines for how that process works is a great idea, and I would be happy to serve on an ad hoc committee.
Okay, then I'll consult with Councilman Welt whether or not we need to formally agendize that for the next meeting, and then to vote on giving the ad committee that charge, or that's something we can just sort of do in a more ad hoc capacity.
You can appoint the committee and then their recommendations will be brought back to the full board.
Okay, great. And I would say while it's fresh, and I would say, are there any volunteers to serve on this committee? We can just annotate them at this moment. I see
I'd be
Trustee
happy to.
Trustee
And who
Jones.
else? Was
Trustee
that
This
Riley,
is
be
Whiteley
happy
Elaine.
to.
I would too. I'd like to help.
and Jones? So I have four, right? I have
Yes.
Trustees Fiedler, Whiteley, Sanchez, and Jones. Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay. And then I'll defer back to if someone could bring us back to I think page 2 of the agenda, and I would like to just make sure if I want to say public comment, maybe next. Yeah, so announcements, I won't read those verbatim. I'll just refer you to the upcoming meeting cadence and locations and times for our next meeting. I'll just really just remind everyone for the February 10th meeting, that is the finance and audit, and everyone is invited to attend that outside of the committee. And certainly you can get a better sense of where we are financially and where we are trending and projections. But, overall, we are very fiscally responsible and healthy in that regard. And then also, I want to just let everyone know that I know that I will not be attending the upcoming meeting on February 12th. I've asked Trustee Whiteley to chair that meeting in my stead. I'll be away taking my son on a college visit, so I won't be able to attend. And I believe Director Watson will also be out of town on leave as well, so he will not be in attendance. And Floresto will man the seat in his stead. And before we go to public comment, I just want to see if there were any other comments that anyone had before we go to public comment.
Yes, this is Karen Dukowski.
Yes, Trustee Dukowski.
Yes, I just want to thank you, Chair Rogers, for all the work involved in all of this, and Mr. Serpico. I just wanted to be on the record that I am very pleased with the process, and personally, I don't think that it needs any tweaking at all. There's information that you cannot predict. There's costs you cannot predict because of COLA, and I'm just pleased with the way it is now. If everyone wants to, if you want to consider a new ad hoc committee to look at this, that is fine. I'm always for making things better, but I am absolutely pleased with the process thus far. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments or announcements?
Yes, I was just saying, excellent job, Chair Rogers. I appreciate you guys' work. I would also concur on the last statement. I believe, in my opinion, I thought the executive board was somewhat that ad hoc committee, but maybe I'm mistaken. But whatever makes the process smoother, more transparent, I'm on board for. So that's why I didn't volunteer to be on the ad hoc committee. But I appreciate all the hard work that everybody's put into making this contract possible.
Okay, I'm counting my Mississippis. Okay, hearing no further announcements. Under that category, we go to public comment, and I'll defer to you, Chandler, see if we have anyone signed up for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I
Do
second
we have
that
a
motion.
second?
I second
Okay,
it.
thank you. So Trustee Sanchez made the motion and Trustee Williams seconded, and we are officially adjourned. Everyone, thank you for your time and participation in the process and the conversation, and we'll continue to, incrementally improve all the things that we do as board members to further the mission of the library. Everyone have a great rest of the day and weekend, and have a great meeting next week.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you, Keith. Bye-bye.